The Dick Cavett Show. With the committee, Janis Joplin. Writer on the pop scene, Michael Thomas. And Bob Rosengarten and the orchestra. Ladies and gentlemen, Dick Cavett.
We've had a lowering of our budget, so only half the wall turned tonight. I hope none of you wants a refund. Did you have to wait a long time in line? Yes. Too bad. I'm sorry about that. We're trying to iron that out. Doesn't seem to be... Say, here are the cards that you filled out, and I'm going to have a go at your questions. It's a way of letting you sort of write the monologue and be responsible for what happens in this part of the show. Does your size bother you? No. Not as long as I remember to duck going through doors, it doesn't bother me a bit. That's a wonderful way to open the show. Dear Dick, did Jonathan Frid leave any teeth marks on your hand? Oh, if you missed Tuesday's show, Jonathan Frid, the vampire, Barnabas from Dark Shadows, bit my hand. No, he did not leave tooth marks on my hand. He took them with him. This better get a lot better. Why don't you ask who here in the theater lives the farthest away? I think I would win. Who does live the farthest? How did you start out on your career? I started with a laugh on my lips and a song in my heart. Isn't this a weird... Brother, if I ever do this again. How would you like to meet 4 nice girls after the show? Lynn, Josephine, Karen, Mary Ann, we swing. How come you don't have dates then? What do you whisper behind the palm of your hand to each guest before a station break? Freddie Michella. I do not whisper behind my hand. I'm licking the back of my hand. It's a little weird, isn't it? Why? Amy Kaufman. Amy, you've asked a very profound question in asking why. It's a question that philosophers have asked, posed, and pondered for many years. Not quite in the dumb way you asked it, but... Anyway, dear Mr. Cavett, my sister and I came all the way from Columbia, South Carolina, to give you a kiss. I hope you enjoyed the trip. What is this? Dear Dick, the other day I gave someone a ticket to your show. Then he gave me a vote for Lindsay button. What does this mean? He was rooked. Do you believe in free love, Marianne Palmieri? No. Credit cards for everything. Or words to that effect. Dear Mr. Cavett, who writes those crazy credits which are flashed on the screen at the end of your show? I need a writer like that. Well, those are funny at the end. If you notice, there's a funny credit at the end of every show. Writers don't write those. We have 4 monkeys working at typewriters. You know that experiment, would they ever turn out Shakespeare or something like that? We tried that. We've had these monkeys working now for 8 months, and 4 of them have already written The Love Machine. Just a joke. Jackie Suzanne knows I'm kidding. I'll bet. Dickie, what's going on with you and Raquel Welch? Are the nasty rumors true? From the movie Fat Chance. Have you and Mia Farrow anything in common? Yes. Miss Cavett, do you want to hear my bird call? Apparently have no choice. I don't want to hear your bird do anything. I'm not an ornithologist. How come many show business performers such as yourself and Joy Bishop are so short? Is Bishop short?
You're not short.
I hoped someone would volunteer that. I'm not. Besides, it's better to start small in this business and work your way up. What kind of an accent do you have? My accent is kind of Nebraska, combination Nebraska, Connecticut, New York. My little mouth is a melting pot of the nation. How does it feel to be one of the beautiful people? Who thinks of me as a beautiful person? I'm not one of the beautiful people. I have fantasized being one of the beautiful people and wondering what it would be like to hobnob with the Astors and the Rockefellers and the Rosengardens, but I'm just not one of them. What do you have to say to the visiting members of the AMA? Take 2 aspirin, and if it doesn't clear up, it's a little obvious, but mildly amusing. Can you name 4 or 5 good restaurants in New York? Yes. Can you name the capital of Arkansas? I love little games like that. Do you wear lifts in your shoes and bleach in your hair? No, I do not. It's the other way around. Why don't you try turning on before your show? It would be a lot easier. Is that a reference to drugs?
I don't. Why are you asking me?
I don't know why. Look over there. I would never do a thing like that. Little Dickie Cavett, are you kidding? From Nebraska? Why did the Pilgrims land in the New World on a rainy day in April? Oh, I see, you've answered it. It's, the answer is April showers bring May flowers. Bring May flowers. Who did that? Why don't you try turning on before the show? Oh, lovely. Sir, how do you keep your job? Since you have no talent, no humor, nothing but a big mouth. Got a card for you. Well, anyway, we have a lot of guests here tonight who've probably gone home and discussed by now. We have a wonderful group called The Committee, whose improvisational skills will dazzle you, and a lady by the name of Janis Joplin. Bright young man named Michael Thomas, and I will also be here myself, so we'll be back after this message. You could sit here a bit longer, can you?
Sure.
Well, good. I don't know if you know Michael Thomas or not. In fact, I have not met Michael Thomas, but I have read pieces by him many times in most of our major magazines, I guess Esquire and Look and Holiday, and where else have I read him? Ramparts. Yeah. And he is the movie critic for Status magazine, and he's quite a brilliant writer. He's writing his autobiography. It's titled Lies. He's much honored for the stuff he's written, and he's even 25 years old, which is another of his credits. Will you welcome most prolific gentleman, Michael Thomas. I look more like Dean Rusk than ever tonight. I don't know what it is. How are you, Michael?
Pretty good.
Greeting. It's funny, I should say that, because by saying that,
how are you?
What?
Did you say how are you?
No, by saying that implication about my looking like Dean Rusk, because I read a piece of yours in which you refreshingly resented the assumptions that some people make from your appearance, but it wasn't the usual one. It wasn't that the so-called...
I'd like to change my appearance if I could think of something better, but and I've been trying, I mean, this is sneakers and
I was thinking about your reference to your hair, though, because you were saying not the usual reaction to people's long hair, but it was the reaction of other people with long hair that you resented. Do you remember the piece sometime?
Well, it's just that everybody expects you to be their brother, just because you have long hair, and there's a lot of people with long hair who I wouldn't want to be brothers with.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it seems that you get identified very quickly, and that's all right, except that you're not that all the time, And so you have to respond. You have to imitate yourself. I mean, people want you to imitate yourself,
Yes.
And after a while, you it's silly, It's just silly.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a piece you wrote on the generation gap or what that I was thinking of, but you were
all of that I
resent.
I mean, I resent being all of these are kind of journalist notions, and they and they're witty, but they don't explain anything, and it seems to me silly, I mean, I like older women, and it's I don't want to. I don't feel as though I'm part of a generation, especially, I don't feel necessarily share, anything with, an age group. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of. It's silly. It's just silly. It's silly to keep to expect people to behave the way they look like they're going to behave.
Mm-hmm. You also, I think, said that they the phrase generation gap sort of excuse both people at both ends of the phrase.
Yeah,
both
well,
ends of the
then
gap,
everybody
I mean,
can
because
say it's all right. You know, it's like saying I'm
Yeah.
a bad guy, and if you say you're a bad guy, then if you do anything wrong, you say, well, listen, I always said I was a bad guy. You know.
Yeah, the label is very comforting.
Yeah, exactly. It's
excuses you.
it excuses you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's,
What does it take to be a rock critic? What was your background for that?
I'd like to know that myself.
it takes being when you're a kid, you know, like listening to Elvis Presley and being fractured by it then, and it being like the music that you always dug a lot, you know, and if you like it, then if you're a writer, then you write about it, you know, because the people are interesting, and because it's this sort of tribal music that you like, you know, it's your tribe, and it just takes like some kind of response to the music, some sensual response, you know.
Don't you think it gets a little out of your business?
I
mean, you know, don't you think writers take way too much on themselves?
Oh, hell, yeah, sure. But
I think that.
well, I just think there's no point in writing about rock and roll at all, really. There's nothing really to say. There's just different ways of saying the same thing, you know. And it's a matter that it should just be, everybody should just enjoy it, you know?
Right, that's what seems to me music's about.
So
But I mean,
about
these
that.
people, I've read columns, I mean, not even people that put me down, I mean, not people that I have a grudge against, but that spend, like, you know, pages upon pages comparing, you know, oh yes, I noticed the Schoenberg influence in this particular riff, when the guy was just going, shooby-dooby, man.
That bugs me wherever it occurs. It's a particular fault of the English. It's all the Americans too, but am I offending you?
No, it's not, no.
Oh, well, wait a minute. I probably
He
won't.
will.
No, I once saw, you know the gentleman I'm talking about, and he produced a production of Alice for the BBC, and then he brought it over here, and it was shown because they considered it too esoteric and dark and spooky or something like that. I don't know why. It was really quite good. But at the end
It's
of it...
spooky, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end of the screening, it was for a lot of actors and people. He opened the floor to questions. And people said, Mr. Miller, I don't want to mention his name, why did you use a carpet in that scene on the wall? And he went into this long answer that was like, you know, it was incredible. One finds the entire history of Western art in the past 500 years a sort of a travesty in the original sense of the word, sort of reclothing biblical stories into some sort of original, one's own neurotic fretwork, sort of working through in some.
But don't take it all away.
And a guy's walking out by this time, you know, saying, "I wanted to know why a rug's on the wall." And it was a very odd experience. Do you find that there's too
I
much
find myself
cerebration?
doing that all the time, you know.
Oh, yeah, but you're not.
I find myself just exercising around something because I'm more interested really in writing about myself than anybody else anyway.
I've
you know.
noticed that.
Yeah.
I've
you know.
noticed that.
And
I mean, in all writers, they really expose themselves when they write about something. Especially, I find it very interesting if you know what it is they're writing about. Say, a show that I was at, you know, even if I didn't play, if I was there, and to read someone's criticism, you learn a whole lot about that particular critic.
If you can write.
What he likes, what he doesn't like, you know, what his tastes are, what his mother was like. You find, and then all the time he's trying to put somebody down, you know.
Yeah.
And all the while you're reading just about him. You
In
read just
defense of
about
criticism, though, there are. I would agree
I mean,
with.
music's just about trying to enjoy it, and you can't
Yeah.
just sit down, you know, over a scotch and milk and enjoy it, man.
all I'm interested in when I write about it is just moments that various moments that it made it or it didn't. You know, moments where it really smiled. You know, and moments where it really turned me off. You know, and it's no bigger than that, and I can't respond to it as anything more than just, you know, flashes of it. You know,
Yeah.
little
Well, your piece on
bits
Jimi
and
Hendrix,
pieces.
where you had a great deal to say
Yeah.
about the way he plays a guitar, which that's interesting. I mean,
Well,
it isn't
the way he
opinion,
plays guitar is more interesting than what he plays on the guitar. You know, I mean, that's what he does. You know, he's play the guitar. He assaults it, he violates it. You know, and it's that interests me much more than what he plays, because they all, you know, sound alike.
Who do you go to listen to, Janice, if you want to really have a? Who are your favorites?
Tina Turner.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Tina Turner.
Yeah.
She's my current favorite. She's the best chick ever. Fantastic singer, great dancer, fantastic show.
Would you be shocked if I didn't know who Tina Turner was?
No, a lot of people don't, but that's too bad. She sings with the Ike and Tina Turner Review. Ike is her husband and band leader, and Tina's the show.
She's really terrific.
Come by some night, Tina. Talking to Michael Thomas and Janis Joplin. Janis will sing for us again before too long. Hey, Michael, you did a piece once about Mick Jagger and something you had seen him do on the BBC. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, it was to do with what we were talking about before, about the older people worshipping the young people until they lose all their credibility and decency and dignity at all. And what happened at this show was when Jagger was on with, it was after he'd been arrested for drugs, and he was on with bishops and professors and dons and intellectuals. And they sat and chatted with him, and he wouldn't talk, you know, because he really didn't want to talk about it, and I guess he was tired. And he just sat there, and there's all these very distinguished people just begging him to, like, smile at them or say something to them, or recognize them at all, you know, as people, which he didn't do, you know, because he was feeling mean to them, I guess. And that seemed to me, you know, that was fine for him to do that, and I can understand why he did it, but at the same time, I hate to see all those other people doing that to him. You know, I hate to see people feeling as though they need some kind of approval from him in order, just because he's hipper than them. You know, it seems to me that they're just degrading themselves, you know, and then losing it, you know, and that's why everybody's so worried about Mick Jagger, because he's lost them, you know, he's just lost them completely, and then they are trying to find him, and it becomes very ugly, you know, it's just ugly. And
what would you say in favor of the older generation?
Oh, I'm totally in favor of the older generation. I just think they failed. You know, I don't think anybody's. But it's not bad to fail. I mean, you know, they tried and they failed, and we should, you know, just say, well, they failed, you know, but I mean, I don't think we should destroy them or hurt them in any way, you know, because they, they're ours.
It's okay, man.
You know, I mean, they're all we've got. They're the only older generation we've got, you know. So.
True. It isn't as if the younger generation has necessarily succeeded either.
Oh, not by no means, no. I'm no more confident of this generation than that, you know.
You're not?
No, I don't think so. No.
I am. No. Quite a bit.
Well, fight it out, you two. Yeah. Janice, you could do another number for us. Maybe so we don't get into time trouble. This would be the time
Go do it now.
to do it, if you will. At these prices. Janice Joplin. Great.